Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this first recording of our homeschooling tips for our local area. Um, I'm Trent Jenkins. If you don't know who I am, I'm a dad. I've got a regular job. Well, regular for me. I'm a campus pastor with North Coast Church. And I'm trying to navigate this whole homeschooling deal. And in the midst of it, I thought I'd reach out to one of my friends, Brooke Carsey, who's a homeschool network director. She's a credentialed teacher, and she's a mom that's been doing this. And I'm like, Brooke, I need some help. Can you please help us in trying to figure out this whole thing? Brooke, thanks for joining us. I know that this is not necessarily the most comfortable thing. This is my first time doing this, and I think it's yours too, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us and being willing to do this with us. So what Brooke has for us is 7 tips to be able to create the best experience possible for us in this period of time while our kids are at home and we're trying to navigate staying at home, with the flexibility that we have, whether you are a mom or a dad and trying to make this work. She's been doing this for several years and just has some tips for us and being able to make the best of our experience. So Brooke, let's go ahead and jump in at it. So 7 tips for homeschooling. What's our first tip for us?
Awesome. So, hi, Trent.
Yeah,
Thanks for
hi,
having
Brooke.
Our first tip is number one, just remember that you are not alone. This is something that everyone's going through. You don't need to be, you're at home all day and you're just in your home and you can't really leave that often. And if there's a distance between you and your neighbors, you don't really even see very many people. And it feels like you're alone, but you're not. And you have the support of so many people. Our nation is supporting you. The teachers are supporting you. The local schools are supporting you. Everyone is on your side and no one's going to scrutinize you. You're having trouble and that's normal. You have fantastic days and that's normal too. And everybody is rooting for you. Everyone really wants things to go as well as possible for you right
Yeah,
now, which is pretty amazing.
I think it's interesting, Brooke, in terms of we see all the things on social media about where people are at and how they're trying to do this, but still you feel that sense of
Yeah.
loneliness and trying to make this happen when you're in your
Yeah.
home alone with your kids. So there is that sense. I think it's a great, first tip. You're not alone, and I think
Yeah.
we've all got to remember that we're not
Yeah.
alone. What's number 2 for us?
Number 2 is pick your priority. And this is just from my personal experience and the experience of other moms in our community. And what we mean by pick your priority is choose 1, 2, or 3 things that are top priority for your family's schooling experience right now, whether it's for a few weeks or a few months, or if this lasts longer than that. You just need to have 1, 2, or 3 things that are the most important things to you. For my family, what we chose was character. We care about our children's character and that it's aligned biblically to the heart of Christ. And that sometimes is all we get done in a day.
That's big.
Sometimes.
That's a huge one. I think that let's try to come back to that one, because I know in my own experience, it's like you feel like, oh, well, this is going to be this great thing. And all of a sudden the schedules collapse and everything else. And so picking one thing, let's come back to that
Sure.
at the end, and we can spend a little bit more time on that one. So number 1 is you're not alone.
Right.
Number 2 is, I've already
Pick
forgotten.
your priority.
Number 2, pick your priority. And then number 3, what's number 3?
Number 3 is operate out of your strengths. And just what I mean by that is don't try to become something that you're not already. If you're not a morning person, don't try to become a morning person. You're just setting yourself up for failure and burnout. If you're not artistic, don't try to teach an art lesson. If you're not a mathematician, then don't try to be a heralded math expert. Instead, learn alongside. I just mean that you want to operate out of what you already have as your strengths so that you don't burn out and your children don't burn out, and so that your family stays joyful.
Joyful and sane. there's that side too, where it seems like man, I know I learned this at some point in time, and now I feel like my kids are teaching me when we start to operate not in our strengths. So
That's right.
that's a great one. Okay, so number four, what do you have for us?
Number 4 is keep it simple and flexible. And so you want to take all those big ideas and all those task sheets and just all those things that you have in your mind, and you want to narrow them down to something that's simple, doable, and still somewhat flexible.
Okay, great. I think you've probably got more to expand on that one, so we'll come back to number 4 as well.
Sure.
All right, so number five.
Number 5 is use what you already have. So look around you, look in your home, and consider what's already there. You likely already have some technology that you can use as resources. You already have some people in your home that know things that maybe you don't know, or they can do things that you can't do. You already have books in your house. Just use what's already there. Don't feel like you have to go all of a sudden and gather all these supplies. That again will lead to burnout and even sometimes frustration, especially when you're trying to shop right now.
Yeah. Oh man. And then you spend money on a tool and a resource, and then you get frustrated that they're not using it. It's like, I bought it for you so you can enjoy school. Now enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah. It just doesn't quite work out that way.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. So number six.
Okay, number 6, in my personal opinion, is the most difficult roadblock to homeschooling for most families that we have encountered. Number 6 is be ready to learn too. And that has to do with the heart and the mind of the parents. And man, we're human, and we mess up, and we're stubborn, and we're prideful. And I'm not saying that everyone who's watching this is, but I just know that in our experience and in a lot of other families' experiences, a lot of the hiccups and troubles that we run into and the difficulty, they all have to do with my mind and my heart. So it's just about having that readiness to learn and grow also.
That's an
humility.
interesting one in terms of, I think there's this thing of home and then school. And then we're supposed to be these teachers, and it makes it more fun, I think, sometimes when we stop and think, what can I learn in this along with them and enjoy some of that learning process.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Last one, number 7.
And then number 7 is my favorite. It's just enjoy this time, enjoy this period. It is special. I know it's tough and it's difficult, but I don't know that ever again in your life you will have the opportunity to be so engaged and involved, to be able to check in with your kids throughout the day and have this amount of time with them, to be able to observe them and watch them. It's pretty special. So make it fun. Have fun with it, whatever that means to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is really such a unique time. This time where it's like, we didn't choose it. We never really wanted this whole situation, but making the most of it. And in a sense, really trying to figure out how do we cherish it rather than get through the drudgery of it, I think is the key. All right, so just in our few remaining moments, we want to keep this shorter for all of you online. We realize you're still caring for your kids right now. You're still trying to manage the household. But we're just going to zero in on 2 others, and then we're going to end up doing this again next week. If this ends up going well for all of you and going in through some of these more tips. But I want to focus in real quick again, Brooke, on number 2, on that whole idea of figuring out your priorities and 1 to 3 priorities. And it was interesting. Your take on this was much different than what I thought it was going to be. In terms of my 1 to 3 priorities. Okay, we're going to do math or reading. Those are my priorities for today, and it was much different. So let's zero in. What do you mean by that priority factor?
Okay, so when I say pick your priorities, obviously we chose to homeschool for a long term. So for us, our priorities, I'm thinking long-term priorities. For families that are watching this, we don't know how long this is going to be. And so it could be a few weeks, it could be a few months, it could be a few days, hopefully. um, but it could be longer. And so you want to keep that time frame in mind when you're picking your priority. This is not a priority that changes every day. This is that solid foundation that's going to stay the same regardless of the events of that day, whether it's the events in your home or the events in the world. What are the 1, 2, or 3 legacies that you want your children to look back and know they learned, know that that was embedded in their hearts during this time period, however long it lasts? And
Yeah.
what that
So,
does,
yeah,
go
like
ahead.
you said, that, for you, and, I echo this, for you and your family, and it's going to be different for family to family and where they're at
Yes,
in their lives. You said you're choosing biblical character as, okay,
right.
that's like your number one priority, and then you probably have some subcategories underneath that.
Yes,
But
yes,
we want them to learn this biblical character trait from today, or not even necessarily today. It's not a matter of, oh, I'm teaching forgiveness today, and you're going to learn how to forgive, dang it.
right,
Right? It's not that. It's a matter of, okay, in this home, we are a grace-filled family, or we've got
right,
compassion, that sort of idea. Um, so how does that play out though, realistically? I think you
right,
started, telling me, okay, you're just going about your day willy-nilly, hopefully that they're picking this up. You have curriculum that you're going through, but sometimes, you have reading and math, just like
yes,
everybody else. But
yeah,
sometimes all of that falls apart, and that's when the
right,
priority comes in play. Talk that
right.
through with us.
So our priority for our family is biblical character. Really, we want our kids to know Jesus and be able to shine his light as well as they can, knowing that they're still developing humans, and at some point they will own that on their own in their own relationship with Christ as they get older. But for now, we do have Bible lessons that we do weekly, and we are continuing to do those. And then day to day, that's our top priority. So when there's a crisis, as in suddenly there's a pandemic announced,
Yeah.
and we're not sure how our lives are changing, we're going to hold on to that top priority. And I'm going to tell you that when life was changing, we didn't do math that day, and we didn't write an essay that day. And what we did instead was we figured out, okay, how are we going to pray? How are we going to move forward? And let's check in on our family and our friends, because that is our top priority,
Yeah.
is shining the light of Christ. So it guided us through that time period of uncertainty. There are times in your life where no matter how magnificent your schedule plan is for your day, something happens. Someone is sick. You get a phone call with bad news. The car tire goes flat when you're on your way to your next event, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to handle that? And how is this still a valuable educational experience for our top priorities?
I think that it gives me a lot of encouragement, Brooke, in terms of, like, we created our schedule. It's all color coded and all
Right.
pretty, for our kids to be able to view and see. And,
Yep.
it started going off, pretty good, starting that day off good. And then things just start to fall apart. And then, one kid's not doing this. And then one person needs help with their work here while another person, and I'm trying to get a phone call from work. And all of a sudden we've got kids
Right.
crying. The schedule is
Right.
kaput. Lunch needs to happen, and it's like, okay, what are we
Right.
doing? This whole idea of creating a loving, nurturing family environment is now
Right.
turned into chaos.
Right.
And I think there's that side, for me, Brooke, as I'm looking at this, is like, I sure do want my kids to look back on this as an enjoyable time, and
Right.
not a time like, man, I hated those moments when I was home alone with mom and dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a great tip for us,
Yeah.
and really, figuring out our priorities in this. All right,
Well,
last one.
can I
Last
just say,
one. Yeah, go for it.
so I just want to reiterate that even though there might not be a curriculum for this priority, and even though there might not be a standard for it, whatever your priority is, it's going to be different for everyone, but it still is education that is valuable. Whatever your priority, whatever you choose it to be for your children and your family, you are heralding a cause that your kids are going to carry into adulthood.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, that's real life learning, and it's preparing them for life.
Yeah.
So that they know how to hold on to those priorities when there is chaos around them. They're learning how to deal with those difficult situations and hold on to those priorities and do it all in a healthy way.
Yeah. I think
And that's super, super valuable. And we forget that because we're not checking off a box.
there's that
So
side of figuring out and keeping it simple and keeping the main thing, because we don't want to create more chaos in the midst of chaos.
Right, exactly.
Which is, I think, a lot of times what we do. All right, because we're running short on time, let's just do a couple quick, simple things in a great environment for learning. Because although, yes, that's our priority, set the main thing, we still want them to learn. We still don't want them to fall completely behind. So for these parents that are struggling of how do we get them engaged with work, how do we keep it simple and flexible? You had some great tips there.
Yes. So simple and flexible. There's a lot under this category. I'm just going to focus on two. The first one is setting up your simple routines for your home. Your routine might be a morning routine. It might be an all-day routine, but keep it simple. And it's not necessarily about a time schedule. It's about a routine. And in that, there's some flexibility. There's ages and stages of kiddos that you need to keep into account, right? A daily routine is more important for our younger kids than it is for our older kids. Our middle ages they're gonna benefit from sort of a weekly routine and they have that knowledge, that capacity to be able to fathom a week at a time and sometimes beyond that. And then our high school kids, our teens, our older kids, they can have a lot more autonomy in their routines, and they can have a say in their routines. Really, all the children can, but they'll be able to take part in their routines and help establish what they are. And it's less about making sure that they're not as dependable on that daily routine as the younger kids are. But I just want to encourage you to keep that routine simple. It doesn't need to be super elaborate.
Right. I think as I look back on how we've tried to do it, it was just too complex.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we're going to tackle these 2-3 things, and here's our routine till lunch, for instance, and then break time, and then we might have a secondary routine,
right?
Versus like the scheduled, regimented thing throughout the entire day.
Well, just so you know, I had a routine and I had a beautiful schedule on the wall for 2 years, Trent. So you're good that you learned after a week, hey, I need a little more flexibility. It took me 2 years.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, and then on the flexible side in room environment, you had some great tips on there.
Yeah, so when you set up your environment, you don't need to create an elaborate space that mirrors a classroom. You don't need to buy a lot of new furniture. You don't need to put colorful posters on the wall. You can do those things. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying you don't need to feel compelled to do them. You don't need to feel obligated to do them. Really, you want to set up an environment that is that will be fruit giving. Really, it will offer children an opportunity to focus, so it's free from distraction. You want an environment that is flexible, so the child can pick up and move outside if they need to or want to. They can stand up if they need to or want to. Boys in particular, not always, but boys in particular, their brains connect better when they're physically moving while they're learning. And you have a wonderful opportunity to be able to let that happen, and it won't matter because it's not going to be influencing or affecting 24 other kids. So that is a pretty neat opportunity.
I think you mentioned even like letting them go outside. If they're going to read a book on the playground, if it's not raining outside, those are things they can't do in the classroom.
That's right. Or even pick up their paper if they're working on a paper. Go sit out in the sun or on the grass, or just some really, really neat opportunities. You want to set up a place that encourages exploration. It encourages learning, but it doesn't demand it in a certain way. And it offers them the ability to get the tools that they need on their own. and is free from distraction, and then is free from temptation. And by that, I just mean you want to make sure they're safe in whatever area they're working. If they have access to the computer, you want to make sure that they have the freedom to move in that space, but without going into a realm that's not fit for them.
Right.
Whether on the computer or in a book or even just in a room. You want to set where they can have a little bit of independence safely, but then they won't enter into a realm that's not fit for them.
Yeah, from our older kids, clicking on things that we don't want them to, and even our younger kids just watching shows, when they should be doing their learning thing. There's those temptations. Innocent enough, they distract them from what they should be doing. Well, Brooke, this has been rich, really good stuff here, and I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody some more information in the time to come. But thank you so much for joining us and helping us as a community navigate these new waters.
Hey, thank you, Trent. And I am praying. I'm praying for all of our families. I'm praying for our church, and I'm praying for the world. And I think this is a really neat opportunity. Thank you for letting me share some thoughts. I know that, again, I'm not an expert, just another mama.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you bringing those things for us. And just want to let you know, if you have any questions for me or Brooke, I encourage you you can put them on Instagram, direct message, or put them in the chat, and we'd love to be able to answer some of those in a future conversation. Thank you so much, everybody.